Dreaming of owning land? Shelter Zimbabwe makes it possible. With prime residential stands in Rockview Park, Mavuku Chishanje, and Lendi Park Marondera, we've got the perfect location for you. Enjoy flexible payment terms, whether cash or as little as 20% deposit with affordable monthly installments. Prices are inclusive of VAT, giving you peace of mind as you secure your future. Don't wait. Become a proud landlord today with Shelter Zimbabwe. Gaia Ori Landlord. Welcome back to Salisbury Township Memories. The journey continues. New stories and a deeper look into the lives that made this community what it is today.
Which is now called Highfield Murimwe. Started by the nationalists who saw that young people were not having an opportunity of continuing with secondary education. Briefly started there before they moved at one time to Wangira. And then now they've got their premises at what we used to call Kumapranga. You remember Kumapranga?
Right.
Where the, as we went to Ford Motors, the Ford Motor Company. So,
Yes,
so that's where Murimwe is
yes.
Along, I think it overlooks Willowville Road nowadays.
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
So, and then you had other shops this side, overlooking
Ford
the
Motors
shops of them.
the wheel of a motor industry.
Ford Motors, yeah. And then we used to go there to watch Zinyawe, and we also watch the church and other people. It was a place of entertainment.
I want you to come back to the businessman.
Yes.
You've spoken about Wema Storo. You were going to respond about Wema Baz.
Wema Baz. You had Dana Matambanazo. It was big Matambanazo. You had Anangoni Zashi. You had Anafara Zumba.
You had
Mazivei and Rutendo.
You had Modern Express.
Rutendo. You had Mcheche. Mcheche started as Easeway Taxis, then established Mcheche bus services.
Right.
There. Then you had Anamasi and Daita.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
you know what was
buses.
interesting about those businessmen? I had the privilege of running into Mdara Mcheche and the late Mdara Rusike. Most of them I think are gone now. Achitsanangura, how they made their businesses. Personal credit, higher purchase yakazoya pakati, and then it died again. I don't know if Van Vechidiki know what higher purchase is. Higher purchase was where we were buying credit.
Yeah, I bought my first car. It was 1977.
Right.
It cost $750, not US dollars.
Right.
Local currency.
Yes.
On higher purchase,
right.
Paying $25 a month.
Right.
I bought it at Grand Car Sales in town. And now, what's there? At Grand Car Sales, it's just next to this Reserve Bank building in town, which is which became Zim Bank. It used to be called Raw Bank,
yes,
if you remember.
Yeah. Bank,
so,
yes.
There was Grand Car Sales there where I bought my first Mazda 1000. But those days you were shining with the Mercedes Benz. I mean, many people would remember the likes of Chester Mende, Thomas Pandey. You were very flashy people.
Very flashy. Give me a break. I remember coming to Salisbury,
yes.
My first car I had bought for $250.
What car was that?
MG.
You were from Alfa Romeo.
My very first car was an MG.
Yes.
It was in the Austin family.
Yes.
Some dilapidated old thing. I remember it was as blue as this. I bought it for $250. I think tangatagma dollars, papa, and tangatagma pounds.
Yes.
And I remember, there was a wholesale radio. Yakanga iri apa pa kuburuka vanhu pana 4th Street. Kana vanhu vachibva kuna namabvuku mutare pavanoburukira paipa vachiuya kuna 4th Street. Which is now extending into the service station. Pakanga paine wholesale radio. That's why we used to have our radios fitted there. So if you had your radio fitted there, or you were the man. So I had my radio fitted there, and this radio cost $312, $312.50 to be exact. So it was more expensive than the car.
Okay.
So there's a radio, and radio yachainge ine tape. Saka obviously zvairibuda muradio zvainge zvisina naiterera. Saka ndaiterera the tape, and the tape was full blast. Ndakandaisirwa ma speakers. I don't know how I still have ears. In the. So I was blasting. They got a Western Triangle directly opposite
Kunana Namburiko kwewe.
opposite, directly opposite Glenora Police
Glenora,
Station.
okay. Duze kwa superintendent.
Ayiwa.
Kwa wena superintendent Glenora kwa weku Western Triangle. Were you somewhere near there?
No. Directly opposite the police station.
Okay.
Directly
the other side.
opposite Glenora Police Station.
Okay.
Opposite.
Then behind you have got Geneva.
Correct.
Geneva behind you, yeah. Okay.
Correct. Then the shops in the corner.
Yeah.
And the Taingari dead roads, we didn't have tarred roads. So I was blasting this Ningirikini radio down and flying with my car down the road. Parked my car, went to sleep, woke up tomorrow morning, my radio was gone.
Oh, yes.
All they took was my radio. And they left my car alone.
Yeah, radios used to be stolen.
So, the Mercedes story you then saw later was much later.
I think I know you mainly as a very flashy person. I think you have to talk about that.
Give me a break.
No, I mean, let me mention flashy. Let me repeat the Chester Mendy, Thomas Pande. Yeah, Matinde and Mundwa also were good at, changing cars and so forth. Yeah, tell us about that. How did you buy those cars? You had the most beautiful cars among Africans.
Well, it's actually very interesting. It wasn't my money.
Okay.
I worked for Stuanidis,
okay.
SNT Import and Export. He used to export to Zaire, in those years, which is now called DRC Congo.
Congo.
He was a Greek fellow brought up in Congo. So in our time, we were hunted by white people. So I was hunted down. I was working for carriers, which then became Coley Hall when it was bought by Mike Coley and Betty Hall from Bulawayo.
Yes. Very, very big transport company.
Oh, yeah.
Coley Hall. Oh, yeah. Just like the Rosten brothers.
Which belongs to the Ballows group, which is huge in South Africa to this day. Thomas Ballows. So when I came into Harare, after my MG, my first vehicle then became a company car ndichisenza ku carriers. Because when I came to Harare, ndakaunzwa nemurungu wangu wandakanga ndichisenzera ku Chinoi, where their partnership had bust up. He got a job in Harare and he brought his African to work with him. The usual story of yesteryear. And so I was given a company car, which was unusual for a black person to drive a car. So I was given a company car, and I remember my first company car was an R12, Renault R12.
Yes.
The one where you had the funny Ngirikini stick.
Actually, mine was an R4. It also had a funny stick, in the one which was popular with taxis. You remember?
Right, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And then obviously, one thing led to another. Then I drove a pickup truck. Then I drove a station wagon, and then I was poached by this Stuanidis, and he wanted a transport company to move his goods. And the real reason why I was poached was because Takanga Tree chichita sanctions busting Patanga Tree carriers. So he wanted somebody who would then process his papers through Zambia into Congo, and that's how I got the job. But he needed to look after me.
The job in the cars.
Yeah, and the job in the cars.
And the leather jackets. I think the first leather jacket I saw is either you or Thomas. Tell us about this.
So that's where the cars came from.
Yeah.
But also in the process, the white people I was working with, which were my age mates, also had their own company cars.
Yes.
But they were now in the business yekutiko kana vachida kuenda kunoshamisira taichinja na mota isi. I don't know if you remember, I drove a red Ferrari, a left-hand drive.
Yeah. I can't remember the cars you drove.
I know I drove
but
so many. But
the whole township will just look and say, the Chester.
Well, the red Ferrari was my colleague who was responsible for the technical department. The Mercedes, the left-hand Mercedes, was mine.
Okay.
Then the Alfa Romeo, the 2000, was also mine. But I also drove another one, which a Mercedes. I think it was a 260 CE. It was another colleague, a German, Gunther Rippenhausen. And later I drove a Datsun 260Z, you know, the long nose. That was mine. But where did I get them? I was getting them from my employer. You know, they were spoiling me.
What was I driving that time? The 1000, the small 1000, and then the RR4, the taxi type, and so forth. And already you are at car number 10.
You always send ZBC.
RBC,
You were working for government. You know, hakuna mari, you know.
Okay.
Because those were the places. And you know why you guys went, I think why you guys went to ZBC or RBC
yes.
was because my Webster Shamu, Nana, Ngirgene, Buruake, Patrick Bajila.
Well, in my case, it was family.
It was family.
You know,
how did it happen?
you had Joseph Masugu, you had Jafet Masugu.
So
my father also worked there.
And so it was you were following in the footsteps.
Yeah, it was in the.
Okay,
because after my father was demobilized, he worked briefly for the cold storage, and then he was recruited in the 1950s in the then Southern Rhodesia Broadcasting Corporation, and the rest is history. So me
so you
and some of my brothers
were
broadcasters by nature. It runs in the family. Yes.
Wonderful. It looks like we could be on it for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Maybe
but we came a long way.
Very long way.
You know, good memories. But today, where are we?
Well, it's important that we share these stories. They also build from them. Not that they should do exactly what we did, but it's always good to build a foundation from where your parents left and so forth.
I have a sense that we killed our roots. We did not pass them on to Vanavedu. And I think the reason why we did that was because in our time, it was fashionable to kwende samwanaku multiracial school.
But you know, there's also another angle. Not many people killed their roots. When we lived in the township, we actually tried to embrace, the culture where we came from, and we appreciated each other. We knew that the Dubes over there come from Chipinge, and there are certain things that we knew the Dubes would do and learn from there. And there are dances. You remember the guy called Cheka Mwenji? Cheka Mwenji would visit people mainly from Chimanimani, Chipinge, and so forth, in Mchongoyo with his family and so forth. And we appreciated that. At our own house, my father would bring those choirs which resided in Harare. Many of them at the Harare hostels, or now called Mbare hostels, the Machobani choirs, Lobela choirs, and so forth, just to entertain us, over the weekend. After that, they get the chibuku that we were talking about, as well as the tea.
My argument,
and as a result, we managed to sustain ourselves and appreciate our culture. Then you had the people from Malawi. They were very good at organizing burial societies, and they would also congregate as Malawians, have their funerals there, and took their children. So people who grew up in those eras, they never forgot their roots.
I agree,
yes.
But my challenge, my bone of contention is Vanavedu.
Yeah, it's us
if you go to Vanavedu Nas and you talk about Muchongoyo, and you talk about these choirs, you talk about these roots zekuchipinge, akuchisina. It will not surprise me if you run into half a dozen Vanavedu street, vasingazive kumshakwa, vasatotombo kusvika.
Yes.
Let alone kutoziva kuti ko mtupu wake ndiani.
It now depends with family. I don't know how you do it in your own family, but my children appreciate that. They understand that. They were born and bred here, but their mother is not even Ndebele. My wife speaks Ndebele. She has never been to Matebele, and she has never lived in Matebele land, because we just decided that we're going to keep our cultures.
That's true.
And others would say, look here, in this house, we're not going to speak Shona, we're not going to speak Ndebele, to be English only. That's their choice, and hence the difference that you're talking about.
My children, thanks to the opportunity to give them value, they know Mutupoyaho, they speak their language properly, and they know Kumushakwaho. But the other day,
how can they fail to know Pachiwota Baduza?
I want to say even in Dobo Kwashimba.
Okay. Also kwa sekene.
Oh, kwa sekene. because sekena chota are neighbors.
Okay. But pazvimba padhuzewo futi.
Pazvimba padhuze, but paseke padhuzeka, because remember kuti vatowa mukati metaundi panopa panenge panonzi paziki ziko pane ziko paya
kunana dema
nekwadema isekeka yese vatowa mukati metaundi
havasina mindana najeva.
No, not at all. But you know, they've done extremely well. They've managed to keep some little bit. They still have ningirikini some minda, but you know, you can't do anything. But you know, I was talking about ndaenda ku sports day kuchikoro kwevana pa Hartman House. And you know, one of our colleagues comes to me and he says, Shamat, how is it possible kuti vana vako vanotaura vasina accent? I was quite shocked, you know.
Vakori pa Hartman House
vazukuru here vana vangu inini.
Usine mwana ari pa Hartman House?
No, in those days.
All right, okay.
In those days.
Yes.
And this chap says kuti vana vako se vasina accent. Can you imagine?
Okay.
Yeah. So this is how we lost it. But whatever it is, we have a duty to do something about it. Kuti vana vedu vasanyanye kurasika, because it won't be very long before we are erased. Although it might be a little bit too late, because chirungu muvana vedu chawanda. But you know what is worrying me about some of them, if not most of them, is their ability to stand on their own feet. You know, the number of vana vari kutadza kubuda mbama amai to go and start their own imba is quite staggering. And we have
it's
a duty.
disturbing.
Yeah, it's very disturbing. We have a duty to doing something about that. You know, for those of us out there who are able to do it, we must do something about it so that Vanaveda can be weaned like we were weaned by our fathers and mothers. You know, we had fathers and mothers who earned little to nothing and were able not only to take us to school, but to give us something. You know, even if chekutanga nacho rakanga riri ningirikini baskor or ningirikini marie kutukwire bus kwenda kwarere kunotsvaka bus. You know, that was in itself an achievement. Are we able to do it today?
If you did not walk to go and look for that job.
You know, the other day I was in Bare Tichiviga, one of our colleagues. I was disturbed near the amount of damage yaitika kuvana vedu. You look at them and you say, if we're not careful, pane generation ichaitwa wiped out completely.
Exactly. That's very evident, yeah.
Welcome to Etosha Gardens, a serene and dignified resting place located just 27 kilometers from Harare. To reach us, take the Mutare Road towards Rua. Once you pass the Rua Golf Club, take the next right turn, continue for 1 kilometer, you will find our peaceful sanctuary. Etosha Gardens offers beautifully landscaped grounds, secure burial spaces, and compassionate services for your loved ones. Our team is here to assist with memorial planning, grave maintenance, and any inquiries you may have. Book a burial with us today at www.etoshagms.co.zw. Etosha Gardens, your cemetery of choice.